Okay, so for our general fund, this is unrestricted money that we pay our expenses with. We have brought in year-to-date $72,000, and our expenses were at about $71,000. So we are covering the expenses, which is very good. I looked at January to May last year, and our giving is up 5% from that period last year, which is also very good. I wanted to throw up where we are in regards to the budget. If you remember when we proposed the budget in November of last year, we talked about how, as a finance team, we really looked at our expenses and how we could decrease those expenses, but if giving had remained the same, we still wouldn't be covering those expenses. So this slide is really cool to see. Our giving compared to what we budgeted is over what we expected by just over $3,000, and our expenses are pretty close to what we thought they were going to be. So we're spending about what we budgeted for, but our giving has increased. So another good story to tell. This is just our bank account balances as of May 31st, and this includes our Haven Camp investments as well. If anybody wants a printed report of this or any other finance report, let me know, and I can print that after. We also talked about two special giving accounts that we were collecting for. One was the furnace and air conditioning maintenance monthly. So far, January to May, the expenses have been $1,300, and we've brought in $1,035, very close to what our expenses are. And general counsel, $3,600 in expenses, and we've brought in very close to that, $3,200 around there. So very close. Giving has increased to the general fund, and we've brought in over $4,000 of these special funds as well. So thank you very much for that. And Pastor is going to talk about the Building Reserve Fund.
All right, so these two items we just want to share real quick. These two items have come out of the Building Reserve Fund. The first one I'll talk to on the bottom, the driveway ceiling and striping. Again, whenever, hopefully you know me by now, I never look at anything like black and white. So I always try to see the fuller picture. Our parking lot was paved, someone can correct me, 2000, okay? That is the second time, I believe, that that's been sealed, all right? And also, we've noticed over the last several years especially, again, just to let you guys all know, you probably, or friends know, we live in upstate New York, right? So it's melt, harden, break apart. And thankfully, because this is a legal pass-through, the city of Rome actually fixes the potholes in either entrance or exit. But over time, again, through all the wear and tear of everything, something has to be done or had to be done with that, right? And so you might say, wow, it's a lot of money coming out of our Building Reserve Fund for $6,000. We had thought about doing this and said, let's just discuss it. We had a quote from somebody for $700 more. And then all of a sudden one day, a representative from Berry Funeral Home walked over here and said, hey, we're getting our driveway sealed. Would you think about doing it together? We'd each get a discount. And the other thing is that now, with it being done, which again, it had to be done, we're also a better neighbor because we did it with them and they did the whole thing in one shot. And so now all of our property is all done together. And obviously that includes the striping as well. Some of you might go out there and say, oh, well, that line's crooked. Basically, all the guy did was he tried to line up based over previous lines. He looked at like Google Map photos and all sorts of things. The lines aren't going to be perfect because, as you know, that's not a perfect driveway. It's not a perfect parking lot out there. There's all sorts of shapes going on there, so they try to do the best to try to blend that in with the curve and things like that. So again, that $6,000 that came out of the building reserve fund, it did not come out of the budget for this year. But again, something that has to be done, and we've already had neighbors in our neighborhood say, that looks great. And so part of this is not only about the people that drive on our property, it's also about making sure we don't have larger bills to pay down the road for not taking care of it, but it also is about how are we being a good neighbor, right? That's what we should be always thinking about. Love God, love neighbor. Better neighbor with the funeral home next door. If you drive by here, I've literally gotten text messages from people that say, what's going on at the church right now? And I'll say, nothing. Why? The parking lot's full, because they use it very often for the things that they're doing, and we want to be a good neighbor. That's part of that witness. All right? Second thing is this church coach ministry. So this is the part where we're talking about. If you are here thinking, hey, what are we going to do? We're not at that stage yet, but we are working on that stage. So I did, and along with the elders, we did some extensive research to say we knew we have to do some things here to continue forward in ministry. And so this man was presented, Jeremy, who came here a couple weeks ago, and you might say, man, $5,500, that's a big chunk of change. But in what we are getting from him, it's not whatsoever. Because he was here on site for 2 days, and he spent all this time in the building. He measured every wall again. He looked through every nook and cranny. He was crawling up above the sanctuary and doing all sorts of different things. But part of those fees is, the way this plan works is, Jeremy met with leaders on a Monday night barbecue we had, and we talk about vision and where the church is and where the community is. I took him around the tour of the city. And you're trying to align, what is it that we're going to do with our property here? And so part of that money is actually, by the time it's all said and done, he has an architecture on his team that the plans are in place. And so $3,000 of that price is simply architecture money that I talked with someone that's a fellow pastor friend. 10 years ago, they had an architect come in and do some work that cost them $8,800. That was 10 years ago for plans that they never did anything with. And so in bringing Jeremy in, as we're going to talk about here in a minute, Jeremy is looking at everything through the lens of ministry. How does ministry flow? How do people get connected? What's your vision of your church? Where if you brought in an architect from downtown Rome, they may be like, sure, you can do that and you can do that. But he's saying, how do we look at these things to move the church forward? So by the time you're all said and done with this envisioning process, you end up with a plan, legit plan, to move yourself into the next phases, into the next steps. So that money came out, but I also note that it's not reflected on here, someone also gave a gift towards that, and so that's offset some of that cost up there for us as well. So we didn't actually pay out the full $5,500 of that money as well, and so we thank that giver for that gift.